Okay guys, I'm going to show you how to optimize images for the web. Okay, one of the frustrating things about designing a nice image is that you've got anti-aliasing working in your original image that you sort of take for granted, but once you try to save it for the web, all of a sudden the anti-aliasing feature can be lost if you're not sure what's going on. I'm just going to show you here. Here's the original image. It's very simply drawn with the pen tool. I've just literally drawn it and it looks quite nice. You've got the transparent background. When I opened up this original image, it's showing an actual size. It's literally, this is the size of it, image size. You can see it's 829 pixels wide, 100 in height, and I think it's 150 resolution. Look, you could still do this at 100 resolution. I think some monitors now are 100 resolution, so anything higher than that, obviously there's no point. So 100 resolution is generally what you'll see on your images, I think, depending on what the resolution is on most monitors. Okay, so this is the image. Now we want to save it for the web. It's very simple. There's one layer, two layers, three layers. So one layer is one of the hills, the other layer is this one. So there you go. And of course, when I originally opened up the file, this was the white background. This is what you want this image to appear like, the sharpness that you see if it was on a white background in a website. Okay, well, that's not going to really happen unless you know how to save for the web. So what we've got to do is we must do file, save for web and devices. You do not go save and then try to save this for a website. You click save for web and devices. I've got a 2 up here. The original image is what it looks like, literally the original image. So this image here is exactly what we're seeing here, but this is not the image that you will see saved for the web. What you will actually see is the optimized version. So these settings here are showing us what you're about to save as in your folder for your website. And as you can see, we're seeing some sort of jaggedy stuff happening here. What's going on? I'm going to show you what's going on. The first thing you need to understand is the optimized image can look very jaggedy, okay? And what you want to do is first of all decide what is this image going to appear above. So in other words, if this is a background image, that's not a problem, but what's behind this image? Is this image going to be placed on top of, let's say, a white background for the website? So is your web page white background, and then this is the background image that sits on top of a white background, right? So to give you an example of what I'm talking about, I'll just show you now, none, right? And we'll go to preview, and you can see if this image was saved with these settings as is now, and then you suddenly try to put this as a background image in a website with white in the background, you can see you've got this very ugly, jagged look. It's not what you're after, and you want to get rid of that, right? So let's forget that. We'll go back to the original file. I'll show you exactly what you can do to save this as a GIF so that the image, the 2 up is showing us two things. It's showing us the original image that we've created, and here it is back there. So it's showing us this image ready to be saved, but this is the optimized image that these settings are going to produce. Right off the bat, we're going to zoom in. I'm going to show you how you would set a GIF so that, see this ugly, you can see what's going on with a GIF. One thing it does brilliantly as a GIF is it shows you this very pure, clear color. That's fantastic, right? It's exactly what you want a GIF to give you, is that very pure, raw color, right? The problem, of course, is it's not giving you this beautiful transition that this image is giving you, the original image, which is that starts out green and then it starts to transition lighter and lighter, and you can actually see as we get in closer just to really show you, it goes from this solid color to this 50% to this 10% transition, and then of course it hits the transparency, whereas this is just going from one color on to suddenly switching off into transparency, and this is what gives us that jagged look in the preview. So what we're going to do is a couple of things I'm going to show you. First of all, colors. This here, because you've set GIF, this image is now turned into a 2 color. As far as GIF is concerned, it only recognizes 2 colors in this image. So there's no point having 128. You can see you can actually get away with 4 and nothing happens here because quite frankly, you've only got 2 colors in the color table. What you can do with this GIF immediately is, I'm going to just show you with 32 colors for now, and watch what happens when I choose white. Watch closely in the bottom left corner when I choose white. All of a sudden, the colors start opening up. Did you see what happened there? Immediately what happened when you chose this matte box, it gave you the transitions. Now we're seeing the solid color, the original solid color, but now we're transitioning from a 50%, as you can see in here, the 50%, and then we're getting this lighter, almost 5 to 10%. So the very first thing you do with GIF is choose a matte white, and it especially works well on a white background, but guess what? It works well anywhere because what you're trying to do is replicate this transition, right? You can still choose white because what you're trying to do is create that blended effect, and if we look at the preview, look at that, much, much smoother. So I'm going to show you once again. This is with that matte box selected for GIF, okay? Now we're going to get rid of that, and I'll show you, and just to show you again, if we get rid of the GIF and choose none, it gets jaggedy, and you can tell it's going to be jaggedy because there it is jaggedy. You can see the jaggedy look. So what you've noticed here is when you're saving GIFs, choose white, and all of a sudden you're replicating this. This can still be placed over any color, and it will look fine. Okay. The other thing you could do, right? This is the foreground color. This is the background color. Watch what happens when I choose background color. All right, it's picked the color out of there, the background swatch, right, from the original file. Now what happens when I do preview? Looks all good, but remember this image will only look good if the background you're going to place it above, right? This image will sit above a background in the website that is this lime green. If it's not, this image won't look good because it will have this jaggedy look around it. Now, we'll go back to the original file. So remember, this matte color, if you've got a website that has a overall background of this dark green, and then you're going to place this image on top of that dark green, then by all means you can choose that as your background. Obviously you can choose foreground. Bit useless choosing foreground color, and I'll show you why, because quite frankly that's the foreground color, and it's especially useless if that foreground color is exactly the same as this color, right? There's absolutely no point. There is a subtle transition, but remember this will only work if this is to be placed on top of a background color that is that color, but you can see what it will look like. But let's move on to the other ones. You can also choose Ping 8. Remember that Ping, GIF, Ping 8, and Ping 24, each of these is good for logos and solid color type images. If you're working with photography, you always choose JPEG, okay? And I'll show you what happens with Ping 28. Once again, if this image was to be placed on top of this dark color, then by all means you choose it, right? The other way to choose a color into here, to put a color into here, you can see what happens when there's nothing. That's, once again, you've got the same problem. You've got the same transitioning, and you've got that very jaggedy edge, right? Not what you're after because it's not what you've designed. If I choose to pick the eyedropper color is that color, and I can change that. I can double click and choose whatever color I want. I can choose red, okay. Click into here, eyedropper color, there's the red, straight from here. And of course, it gives you that transition from the green into the red. And of course, like I said before, if you had a red background in your website and this image was to be placed on top of that red background, by all means, this would work. So now the next thing we're going to look at is Ping 24, and you can see what Ping 24 does. It immediately and almost identically represents the original image. So Ping 24 will give you almost identical to what the original image is, and if we show a preview, you can see it's perfect. So Ping 24 looks fantastic. Just going to click back out of that again. And not only that, remember that ping 24 with these few settings is almost the same as ping 8 with the white selected. So it's virtually identical. Either or will give you a good image. The next thing to understand is perceptual. All of this stuff, generally 9 times out of 10, this is just algorithms. This is perceptual and selective are the two that you'll generally use. You can see what's happening. What's changing is the color. What these algorithms do is decide how this transition effect is going to happen. Once you decide that you're not going to use this, that drops off, right? So using perceptual or selective is virtually non-existent as a choice. It's certainly not necessary because there's no transitioning. It's only when you suddenly choose one of these, and in this case I've chosen what opens up the color table and the transitioning is this selection, and in this case it's white. Now dithering, as you can see, you can choose diffusion or pattern or noise, but that only ever really comes into play when this image has a gradient. Okay, if there's a gradient in this image, all of a sudden there's a need to choose whether it's dithering or not. Okay, transparency is obviously clicked because if I switch it off, you can see what's going to happen is the original transparent image, which is the one that I've got designed back here, is going to suddenly save like this. But we're trying to show you how to save transparency. If you didn't want transparency, it immediately assumes you want white in the background, as you can see, right? And I can change. I can select that, and you can see what this does. Shifts, unshifts, selected the colors to the web palette. Maps selected colors to transparent. Adds eyedropper to the palette. Eyedropper color to the palette. There's a way to make it so that the... Give me a second. Anyway, I can't work it out, but for now, we're just going to switch on transparency. Interlaced means that the image is interlaced. That is that always select interlace for images for the web, because what actually happens, if you ever notice websites when they're first loading, that images take a bit of time to load. And when you've selected interlace, what that means is that the web browser will render the image as it's coming through, as it's feeding through, rather than wait for the image to fully load. And so what you start to see is the images starting to appear, and then they fully render on the third pass. It takes, I think, 3 passes for an image to be fully rendered in the browser. So interlace is switched on. Colors is more to do with the transitioning. So watch what happens when we increase or decrease colors. What you're watching for is the blending from solid color to the transparency, these extra pixels on the edge, right? That's the anti-aliasing that we're concerned about. You can see that it's probably going to improve the transitioning. It's hard to spot, but once you get down to 4, you can definitely see that it impacted the transitioning from solid color to transparent. So that's why you should know that what you're choosing when you're choosing the color palette is the transitioning, right? 16, 32, and watch the corner, and 64, and you'll probably find that there's not much difference between 64 and 32, just a subtle difference, but you can see that the whole point of choosing the colors and the matte is so that you're replicating this original transition of color. Now I can zoom back out to start to show you what you're going to see. That's about 100%. The other big thing to notice is, why do you save for web and devices? There we are, 100%. We can see that we're looking at this image 100%. Now you can actually see what's going on here. If you actually have a look at the image, you can just start to see this little white edge. So this may not look good as a ping 8. You can see this subtle white edge, right? That's going to cause a problem if we save this over the top of anything that's not white. So what you might have to do is just go ping 24 and it will replicate the original image. So ping 8, you probably can't see it, but there's this very subtle hairline white outline that I can see is going to appear. Now this is not a problem if you place this image specifically on top of a white background in the web browser, or whatever the background color is in the web browser, it must be the color that's fed into here, okay? And so therefore all the transitioning is this color table should be made up of the solid color transitioning into the background color for your website. So bear in mind though that Ping 24 is going to give you a very clean replication of what this original image is. You just save it into the right file, and you should be sorted. So hopefully that just clears up how to save for web and devices and how to save images for the web. Thanks for watching.